All right. Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm really excited for our chat here today, and I'm just going to wait a second here to make sure things are working as they should be, and it looks like they are. Guys, I am really excited. This is kind of turning into a little bit of series of interviews that I'm doing with different people regarding reopening, things like that. And today we have Bob Greene, who is serving his first term as a New Hampshire state representative for Hillsborough District 37, which is Hudson and Pelham, which unfortunately is not my representative, but we still love Bob anyway. Bob is a 20-year Air Force veteran, and his assignments took him all over the United States, Canada, 19 countries in Europe. He retired in 2007. He didn't become active in New Hampshire politics until 2015 and began attending New Hampshire GOP events. In 2018, he decided to get off the sidelines as an activist and run for New Hampshire state representative as a defender of limited government, limited taxes, free markets, personal responsibility, and the rule of law. In the New Hampshire House, Representative Greene serves on finance and legislative administration committees. In 2019, he had a perfect attendance record, voting in all 120 roll call votes. He has a 100% A+ rating from Americans for Prosperity New Hampshire, a 100% rating with the New Hampshire House Republicans Alliance, and an A rating with the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. Bob, thank you so much for joining me today for this live chat. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, Carol. I'm really looking forward to this.
All right. Well, let's just start off with just a general update about what is the situation in New Hampshire in regards to coronavirus, and take it from there.
The governor, he's been working with his task force, and you may have seen last week, he announced that we have this stay-at-home 2.0 initiative. People are waiting to see what was going to happen in regards to May 4th because a previous, stay-at-home deadline was going up to there. There's a little confusion before that because the previous week he renewed the state of emergency, and people were thinking, that they were kind of conflating that with a stay-at-home, but they're really two different things. But without getting into that too much, so as of last Friday, we now have the stay-at-home 2.0. So we have like a staggered, gradual loosening of restrictions. Like, for example, as of Monday this week, certain healthcare services like beauty salons can start operating, limited capacity. And then on May 11th, it's going to be increased to retail stores, drive-in movie theaters, public and private golf courses. Actually, barbers and hair salons on May 11th, certain healthcare services went into effect on Monday, but the barbers and hair salons can start doing more as of May 11th, this coming Monday. And then the Monday after that, May 18th, then it's restaurants. Those that can do outdoor seating, will be allowed to limited capacity. So those are the big details right now. But the governor's meeting every day with his task force, which has some state reps on it, a couple state senators, and then other folks, in government, and some business and industry leaders. And so they're working on ways that we can, ease back into some other areas. Like I know this week they're looking at what churches can do and what gyms can do. Those things are on the agenda this week. So we may, in the next couple of days here, in one of the governor's daily press conferences, some additional guidance on what's happening with that. So the stay-at-home 2.0, it's not complete. It's not carved in stone. Everything's still a work in progress. So between now and the end of May, there could be additional things added to these, these guideposts. So everything's very fluid.
Okay. And so it seems like the stream might be buffering a little bit. Hang on one second. And guys, if you can hear me on the screen, just know that I am actually recording this separately via Zoom. So if something is going on with the stream, if YouTube is not cooperating, if Zoom isn't cooperating, who the heck knows what's going on. But if something is happening with it, we are recording, and I will definitely post this at a later date so you get the full thing, just in case we have these little technical glitches. It's always fun, Bob, when you do things live because you never quite know what's going to happen.
That's right.
But we're going to hope. Go ahead.
It makes life exciting, doesn't it?
I know it does make life exciting. Well, we're gonna hope that this kind of clears up. So what you just said is it does sound like there is a plan for reopening New Hampshire. It's a little bit of a staggered approach.
Mhm.
How do you feel about that plan?
Uh, I mean, I'm as frustrated as everyone else. I mean, because I mean, on one side, I see the numbers and like the latest numbers for today, we have 92 deaths so far. That's been tallied up over the past several weeks. And like I was doing some of my math, I've been putting some of the stuff up on the Reopen New
Yeah.
Hampshire Facebook
I
page.
actually have that. I'm bringing up an example of what you post on the Reopen New Hampshire Facebook page.
Exactly. And yeah, so now it's 92 COVID-19 deaths, and the percentage is 99.993 something else. Like those little tiny digits change, but it's still basically 99.993% of New Hampshire residents that have not died with COVID-19. And the with is the operative word here because, there's a lot of controversy. What are they really dying of? Is it, maybe they had COVID at the time of death, but was that the cause of death? But
Right.
we've heard a lot, especially in other states, how they're fudging the numbers and really bad at the times, just, or sometimes they're just outright guessing. Was it Pennsylvania a couple of days ago? They had to roll back their numbers considerably because of some, some funny accounting going on.
Right.
So I look at this, and yeah, anybody, who's just minimally observant, thinking 92 deaths and we shut down our economy and we shut down the schools and we can't go visit our loved ones in long-term care facilities, or maybe we have someone in hospice care. We don't know how much their days are numbered and I can't even go visit my loved ones in hospice care. So I'm as frustrated as anyone else with this, but, and yeah, part of me would like to say, Governor, let's just open everything up. But I know he's very concerned about what's going on the Massachusetts border. And if you look down southeastern New Hampshire, that corridor leading from the Mass border up to Concord, that's where the heart of the problem is. Like, somebody may think, why the heck can't Coos County, our uppermost county, why can't that be open now? Because they're minimally affected. And even in economic good times, they're the least economically vibrant as it is, because up there it's timber and tourism. That's it, So when these restrictions come down with a broad brush over the entire state, they're suffering as much or more than anybody. So I see that side of it, but I'm not going to be one of these people who says, and I've seen this all over social media, Facebook, I'm not going to just stomp my feet and say that's it. I'm not voting for Governor Sununu next time.
Right. Right.
Because I've been in the legislature for 2 years. I've been in the trenches the past 2 years and seen what we've had to do to try to preserve the New Hampshire advantage. It's a lot bigger picture. It's a lot more than just this issue. I mean, without Governor Sununu, we would be North Massachusetts right now. I mean, if anybody's been paying attention, he vetoed 55 bills and we upheld the vetoes. We sustained the vetoes in the House. And if it wasn't for his vetoes and the House sustaining them, you would have a state sales tax right now. You would have a state income tax right now. You would have all sorts of fees increased. You would have a host of anti-gun bills, thrust upon the citizens. So there's so many other issues, and it's really important. I don't see anybody else with the ability to primary the governor with his name recognition and his $1 million war chest. There's nobody that could possibly try to beat him in a primary. That's the blunt, honest truth. Mm-hmm. And if you don't vote for the governor, then you'll likely look at a candidate like Senator Dan Feltus or Executive Counselor Andrew Volinsky. And, right. And if one of those folks becomes our governor, and if we happen to have a Democrat majority in the New Hampshire House and Senate again, it's going to change the state, irrevocably at least for a very long time. And here's another issue too. And unless you're really a political junkie or attuned to the legislature, you don't realize that 2020, because it's a census year, it also involves redistricting. Mm-hmm. So the party that wins in 2020 gets to, be in charge of the redistricting. And if the Democrats win in 2020, then you're going to see all sorts of gerrymandering in their favor, and we're going to lose this state. We're going to lose what New Hampshire stands for, just plain and simple. So that's the bigger picture of it right there. All those things I just talked about in the past 5 minutes is a lot more than just this coronavirus issue.
Well, and I think that's a really important balance to keep in mind, because on this channel, I've been talking a lot about states that are led by Democratic governors. And in our state, we don't have that. And we also have this legislature that's trying to take away some of the fundamental things that really, I think, makes New Hampshire pretty great. Like, I like not paying income tax. I like not paying sales tax. And I think that, we should be fighting those things tooth and nail. And I say that as someone who was a Democrat for 20 years and still considers myself to be a liberal. I mean, those are some of the great reasons that I live here. But I also think that, and I want to mention too, that I also did reach out to Governor Sununu and invite him to do exactly the same things. I wanted to give him a chance, and I didn't really expect him to respond. He hasn't yet. Governor, I would still love to have you on my channel. But I think that there is an important balance to be had here. Like, what is, like, we can't just retaliate because we don't like the way he's handling this, because the consequences of that retaliation might be even more severe than the problem itself. And I have to say, I'm not necessarily not a fan of what he's doing. My perception is, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, is that he's taking a pragmatic, cautious approach to reopening. And it might not be as quick as I would like it to happen, but I still see it as like, we are making progress.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And some people could just, be dismissive of that and say, well, he's just copying what Charlie Baker's doing in Massachusetts. He's getting his marching orders from there, well, there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, and you have to look too. I mean, if polls mean anything, and we can give them the grain of salt or whatever, but when you see a poll that comes out, it's like a week ago, where Governor Sununu right now has an 89% favorability rating during this crisis. 89%. That 89% in any poll. Okay, if you want to knock off 25%, you want to make 25, 30% your margin of error, it's still a kick butt result, and so there's absolutely no political upside for him to all of a sudden just open the floodgates. There's none. He has no incentive whatsoever to do what some of these folks want him to do. And, unless all you can do is, this is a concept being kicked around lately called the Overton window, which is really just the window of political discourse. What is allowed to be discussed? If, whether it's through protests or whatever, if you can get this sort of idea, just open everything at once, if you can make it a legitimate part of the political discussion, a legitimate part of the discourse, then you might make some headway. But I think the way it is, we have a governor with an 89% approval rating because a lot of people have been watching the media so much, and too many people are just scared out of their gourd, about doing anything gradual. I mean, you've got entire business factions that are going to the governor and say, like the salon industry, a lot of these folks are saying, Governor, please don't open us up right away, Or you got the churches. I can't believe it. The church lobby, whatever you want to call it, saying, Governor, we're not ready. Please keep, it's like, why? I would say, why can't you churches decide that for yourselves? Why can't businesses manage this on their own? Why can't they make that decision independently? Maybe some would like to open now. If some don't feel safe about it, fine too, to each his own. But you have entire industries or sections of society that are pleading with the governor, please, we're not ready.
Well, so, I mean, let's talk about that, because it's correct me if I have the numbers wrong on this, but it's my understanding that something like 56% of the deaths that have happened in New Hampshire they're in long-term care homes. Am I wrong about that?
It's at least that, but I know one number sticks in my mind. Of those 92 deaths that were tallied up as of yesterday, only 4 of them are people under the age of 60. That's it.
Only 4 deaths in the whole 92, state.
Right. And so that, I mean, if I was the governor, I would say, let's focus our quarantine efforts on those long-term, on the nursing homes, on the hospice areas, on the, with that population. Let's do that. And that was a question, that came up to the governor recently, and he said, well, you got some like married couples, maybe one's under the age of 60, one's above the age of 60. Well, how do you tell one spouse they can go for a walk, or but the other one can't, or whatever? I didn't like the answer he gave, but but that's what I would do if I were the governor. I would focus the efforts on the critical population and let everybody else go back to work. But we've had a media that's just been a nonstop diet for the past 2 months, and what I find interesting too, even though if I watch the cable news channels now, and you see various states are starting to open up, and this is opening up, that's opening up. The president's talking about doing away with his task force soon, which is getting some criticism, things like that. So we see that on the one hand, and on the other hand, I'm seeing more and more anecdotes on social media. Oh, I got my butt chewed out in the parking lot at Hannaford's or Market Basket because I wasn't wearing a mask. People have got in my face. So the whole mask thing is still on an up ramp. It's getting more and more militant by the day, in my observation.
Oh, I totally agree.
There's a lag between that and what's happening on a policy level at a 30,000 foot level.
Well, I mean, it's this crazy perception that if you don't wear a mask, it's because, first off, you're automatically going to get coronavirus and die if you go outside without wearing a mask. But then it's also like you only want to infect grandma and kill her off, and that's the reason you're not wearing. And I'm like, no, because I'm very much like anti-mask. I'll wear a mask if I absolutely have to, but how I prefer to handle it is by socially distancing, making sure when I go outside, which isn't very much, to be honest. I have barely left my house in weeks, and when I do, it's only to go to the grocery store and then come right back. And when I'm at the grocery store, I keep my distance. If someone is within 6 feet of me, it's because they came up to me, not because I came up to them. And I wash my hands, I do the things I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm like so tired of being shamed and guilted for not wanting to wear a mask. I find them really uncomfortable, and I also think they're just very, very dehumanizing. Absolutely. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%. And these folks, you have some of these folks, on social media, it's just, they have this false dichotomy that it's either freedom or dying. And, it's just not true. It's just, and I just pointed out to you, 92 deaths out of 1.35 million people, and only 4 of them under the age of 60, and we'll find out information now with youth, if they're asymptomatic, they're it's highly unlikely of catching it from the youngest of the population. We're finding that out more as of late, but they're just some that they have. It's very black and white. If you don't wear a mask, someone's going to die, and it's just
not true.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I heard of, I was talking with someone on Twitter the other day who, he lives in southern New Hampshire, and he was telling me that he's going into businesses now that are starting to mandate you wear a mask to come into their business. I heard the courts are mandating masks. Governor Sununu hasn't gone so far as to mandate masks. And in fact, I think he said that he really hopes not to do that. What would your advice be to people who are just like, the mask is like their number one issue of concern, and they want masks to be mandated in the state of New Hampshire for people in public?
Well, I'm not in favor of that. I mean, if you feel comfortable with wearing a mask, then go for it. Like my wife is saying to me, I'm just going to put one on. I don't want to be confronted in the parking lot at Hannaford's or whatever. I'm just going to put it on and take it off when they get in the car. I'm just going to kind of shut up and color. I'm not going to be militant. I'm not going to get in anybody's faces, but I'll slap one on, take it off. That's fine. I'm trying to avoid it. I mean, I'm carrying one in my car. If I get to a place and I'm really need to get in there and I'm going to be denied, I suppose I'll put one on. But what I see happening, like I think as of yesterday, like in Salem, all of a sudden in the town of Salem, it's a $200 fine.
Right.
But it's going to be challenged because we're supposed to not be a home rule state. I mean, these individual towns are not supposed to be allowed to enact those sort of laws, independently, because then we have a patchwork quilt. Okay, if I go into Plastow, or if I go into Pelham, the nearby towns, or whatever, what's the law there? Is there no fine, or is it $500? I mean, so it's crazy, and so I know the town attorney in Salem is looking into that to see if they have, if the selectmen in Salem, for example, if they have the authority to even do that. and there's various motivations. People say, well, the towns, they're not getting the meals and room tax revenue. They're really hurting. Yeah. It's the same thing all over the state. The tax revenues are way down in all sorts of areas all across the state. But that doesn't give you the right, to do something unconstitutional, is something like that. So, but it's scary because, like I said, it's part of that uptick I'm seeing with the whole mask issue. When you see individual towns, even in our state, starting to, levy fines. It's just be in public is scary.
It is scary, and it's like the literal motto of the state is "live free or die." Right? Have we forgotten like the thing? Right? I mean, it seems like where were you? What happened?
Right.
So you've attended. There have been a couple of protests at the Capitol, and I think you attended both of them, right?
That's correct. Yep.
What were those protests like?
Well, the first one, I mean, the weather was a little cool and a little rainy, but I say there's about 400 people there. Was that about April, a couple weeks ago in April? It's a good turnout. Some crazy things are, and some of the speakers were talking about some weird things, but I think they got the organizers got some feedback on it, and it was even better. I went last Saturday, great weather, and I would say there's upwards of 600 people there. And the speakers are more on point. And what we did at the end is we all went over on the State House steps and we got a picture taken together, all huddled together. So I think it went better. I mean, and whether it has any effect in the long run or not, I don't know. I mean, part of the reason I went, I wanted to get out of the house. I wanted to socialize, and I knew some of my state rep colleagues would be there. There were a few, not a lot, but there's some there. But I think what was interesting too, having gone to both rallies, I saw a lot of faces I didn't know. I mean, and I go to a lot of political events. I mean, even as a legislator, I'm still very much an activist. I'm going to CPAC. I'm going to things around the state. And, and when a candidate is going to speak or do a stump speech, I'm there. I mean, people kind of say, oh, Bob, there you are again. Geez, I get around a lot and to a lot of different things. And I see a lot of the same familiar faces where I go, except for these rallies. I see people who don't normally get involved. In fact, there's a couple of Democrats there from my district. This couple there. I mean, they said they're Democrats, but they said we are not happy with the governor on this, and that's why we're here today. So that's probably why. It wasn't all just Republicans. It was Libertarians. It was Democrats. It was a very mixed crowd, all with the same, sentiment toward the shutdown.
And that's what's been striking to me about a lot of these protests too, is, kind of like, I'm going to call it like the first wave of protests. You saw a lot of like Trump supporting stuff. You saw a lot of like pro-life stuff. It was like these mixed messages that were all over the place.
Right.
But it seems as though like the next wave of protests that came after that, like people got some feedback exactly like you said, and they really started to hone the messaging and focus in on, we want things to reopen. And it wasn't just about, I'm a Republican or a Democrat or a conservative or a liberal or libertarian or anarchist or whatever people happen to be. It was just, we have this in common. We have this mission in common.
Right there, that's the common ground, and that's what we should focus on. Yeah, I mean, I saw less Trump stuff this past weekend than the first time. I mean, I got Trump swag I could have worn, but I chose not to, just because this isn't appropriate. I want to find something somewhat germane to wear. So I went through my T-shirt drawer, and I had a nice T-shirt with a bust of Milton Friedman, and I thought, well, I'll wear that. And it's like, yeah, free markets. This is pretty appropriate. I'll wear this. It was between that and my Ayn Rand shirt. So, yeah.
I just talked to the organizers of the Michigan protest the other day, and they were talking about how they actually really made a concerted effort to tell people, wear your American flag stuff. Like, this is about red, white, and blue. We are all Americans. Mm-hmm. And they really encourage people to come and bring their flags and all this stuff. And I mean, you could tell by looking at the photos, because it was just like American flags everywhere, which I thought was the right message.
Yeah. There was a lot of that last weekend. I saw a couple of Gadsden flags. I even saw another like blue Liberty flag. It was one of the early revolutionary type of flags. I was vaguely familiar with it. It was neat. Yeah, that was certainly appropriate. So the messaging was a lot better this past weekend, for sure.
Definitely. Well, let me ask you this. Let me, because one of the things that I've been hearing from people who are against opening up, and this is more nationally. I don't know that I've actually heard this in New Hampshire specifically, although, you know what, I'm actually going to amend that because I did actually see NHPR getting very, very, very close to this statement, which is that if you want to reopen, it's because you're a racist. Because communities of color are adversely affected by this virus. And I actually did see this story on NHPR, I think a few weeks ago, where they were pointing out that communities of color in New Hampshire, all 9% of them, because it's New Hampshire,
Okay.
are adversely affected. How do you respond to that?
I think honestly, the left, wherever they can try to work in some racism, make that part of the narrative, if no matter how much of a stretch you have to do, they'll try it. I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, I see it the opposite. I think, I think people of color tend to be more adversely affected by economic downturns.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that such an off the wall thing to say? I don't think it is. So I would think that getting the economy back going and getting back to the great numbers we've had as of late with Black employment, with Hispanic employment, with women, with teens. Mm-hmm. We had great numbers right up until 2 months ago. So that's what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. And one of the things that I've really been thinking a lot about is just the mental health implications of continuing to stay completely shut down. I mean, we're already seeing evidence of increased suicides, increased addiction rates, increased overdoses, increased domestic violence rates, increased rates of murder suicide. I mean, so the mental health implications of continuing to do this are of top of mind for me. And I don't understand why that's not being discussed more in the media.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Right. We get these daily updates of the new cases and how many recovered and how many deaths. Let's see how many suicides we have had the past 24 hours. I mean, well, and I've seen it in the suicide hotlines. Their numbers and the calls are getting out, just growing exponentially. I saw something the other day, something like maybe, I don't know if it's a New Hampshire suicide hotline or something, like 800, 900% increase over normal.
Yep.
Oh my, yeah. And I know I have single friends of mine, and I try to encourage them like to get out and exercise, and going to the rally last weekend. I was telling a friend of mine, you spend a lot of time by yourself. I mean, as it is, and it's very unhealthy. It's very unhealthy, even just to go for a walk in your neighborhood, say hi to your neighbors, but yeah, there's a lot of people, maybe, if they're elderly and they're not ambulatory, they can't get out and get some fresh air and exercise necessarily, and you sometimes wonder, well, who's looking out for them? So yeah, there's a whole other societal cost to this that it's not part of the discussion, unfortunately.
Do you have any insight into how the governor is coordinating with neighboring states? Because I think of all the people, like I used to, as a New Hampshire resident, commute into Boston to work every day. So if in those times, like if New Hampshire opened up, but Massachusetts was still staying locked down, well, that wasn't going to help me at all because it would still effectively be locked down. Do you have any insight into how that coordination is occurring?
Oh yeah, well, the governor, he's coordinating a lot with other states, New England. I would imagine he talks about Charlie Baker, even in some of the things I'm privy to. And yeah, I bet he's probably in daily phone calls with Charlie Baker. I wouldn't be surprised. He's also talking with Maine, and part of that discussion is what to do about the beaches along our coastline. And that's a big topic. I mean, that's something. I listed some of the details of Stay at Home 2.0. You didn't hear me mention beaches because we haven't figured out what quite to do with that yet. It's got to be done in a way, probably in coordination and concert with Maine and Mass, probably opening up all at the same time. Because if one opens up, it's going to be, like the governor said, it's like, you get the toothpaste is open and it's going to go out. It's going to go. The flow is going to go one direction wherever the log jam breaks. Whatever. So that, and he's been talking with governors in Rhode Island and New York. So it's not, he's not doing this in a bubble by any means.
All right. So, I mean, so let me see. I guess going back to the protests, one question that came up when people got the chance to submit questions to me is, how do you feel about the way that the media has portrayed the protesters? I guess specifically in New Hampshire. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, I do. I don't like what I've seen sometimes. I mean, I saw a picture on one website. Uh, it showed like a very sparse crowd. It wasn't the picture they took, just depicting the event of last Saturday was very inaccurate. It made it look like there was hardly anybody there. And then I've seen one or two headlines where, and not just in New Hampshire, but in other states where they're trying to make this into a thing that we're getting a bunch of white supremacists coming to these things. You know, if they're there, they sure are keeping it under their hat, because I couldn't pick out any white supremacists at the event last weekend. I didn't see any I didn't see any swastikas or anything like that. You know, so they're just, again, I think the media is too often putting forth a narrative that isn't there. I was pleasantly surprised when I saw the Concord Monitor, which is not the most right of center newspaper. They had the crowd count last Saturday at 600. And that was the highest number I saw out of all the accounts of last week's rally. So kudos to the Concord Monitor for having probably the closest, most accurate, count for the rally.
Yeah. And guys, if you're joining us from out of state today, just know that like 600 people at a protest in New Hampshire, in Concord, like during a pandemic, I think is a pretty good number. I was very impressed with that number.
Sure. I saw an overhead helicopter shot of the rally at in Beacon Hill in Boston the other day on Monday. And I thought, well, we had just as many people as that. And that was a good turnout for the mass rally, but we had just as many, if not more.
Mm-hmm. I think that's absolutely true. Now, I think I saw, and I think this happened after the first protest. I saw in the Reopen New Hampshire group that that a parent who brought their children to the protest was getting in trouble and possibly having their kids taken away from them because they brought them outside to this protest. Did you know anything about that? Have you heard anything?
No, I don't think I've heard anything about that. Maybe I might have seen a headline somewhere, but I didn't go do a deep dive into it or anything. No, that's, but it's unfortunate because, social distancing, there was some of that going on, but not a whole lot of times. But, the way I kind of plugged the rally, I put a tweet out. I said, like, a couple days before the rally, I put out a tweet and said, breaking news, 0 people died from the last rally, 0 people contracted coronavirus. So see you at the next event, and so I think I know what family they're talking about, because I think they were both rallies. They had some great signage, especially at the April rally. They had some great signage. They're all wearing the masks, the Sly Fox, V's for Vendetta masks. They're popular sometimes. They had their act together pretty well.
That would be a shame if they experience any repercussions from that. And I'm going to keep an eye out for that story because I think that would be ridiculous. And it kind of reminds me of like, the fear around getting this virus. Like I am not at all afraid, honestly, of getting this virus. I'm like, I'm young, like I'm reasonably healthy. I don't have any other major conditions. Like it might suck for a little while, and I acknowledge that. But at the end of the day, I'm probably going to be fine. I'm probably not going to die. And I just don't understand why everyone seems to think that if they get this virus, that's just it. Like it's all over. And I even think back to like both you and I were at CPAC. Mm-hmm. I didn't know you were at CPAC, but we were both there. And then this commotion that came out after CPAC when one person at CPAC had it. And I have to admit, like, I was actually a little scared. I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to get sick? But everything turned out to be fine. And there was no major outbreak at CPAC, even though this guy was like a VIP and was around all these, like, he was shaking hands and doing his thing.
It happened at a book signing in a side room away from like the main, the main hall where all the speakers come and speak. It was like a side event, so probably didn't get as much traffic as a lot of things do. I mean, the book signings that are in these side rooms sometimes don't get high numbers. Matt Schlapp, the director of CPAC, heard about it, and he self-quarantined himself immediately after that for 14 days, and then he followed up, and there were no additional, cases of any of his employees getting it, so it kind of blew over, fortunately.
And I even self-quarantined after that too. I didn't think I was sick, but I was like, I can't go to the gym. I'm going to get other people sick. And then my
Mm.
gym ended up closing anyway. So it really
Yeah,
didn't matter at the
exactly,
end of the day. Um,
exactly.
all right, folks. I see a really robust chat going on, which is awesome. I apologize, I haven't really been paying attention to it because we've been having a great chat. But if you have any questions that you would like Representative Greene to answer, please go ahead and chat them in. I do always see it better when it's super chat. I'm sorry, but I do know that times are tight for a lot of people, and I do try to do my best to pick out questions, even if they aren't super chat, because I know that not everyone can afford to, and we'll do our best. And if you like this content, if you like this video so far, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out and it is much appreciated. So let me ask you this, Bob, because my understanding of, like, let's rewind a couple of months.
Mhm.
And my understanding of why we put these precautions in place to begin with was to flatten the curve so that our healthcare system would not be overwhelmed with patients to the point where they were incapable of treating people. But in New Hampshire, there have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people laid off from each of the major hospital systems in the state. Not just from one hospital, but, like, I mean, if you put them all together, thousands of people have been laid off from hospitals
Exactly.
because they don't have patients. So what are, like, why? Like, what is the point of this now as you see it?
Yeah, it was all this very precautionary stuff. I was supposed to have a procedure done, a routine procedure in March, and I got a call from Dr. Hitchcock, and they moved it to June. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not aware of any facility right now that's being overwhelmed in the state, but this is a very concerning thing. These hospitals are losing lots of money. There's danger of many of them closing for good.
Mhm.
And in a state with a very rural population like ours, we need every hospital we already have. We just, as it is, because of the rural population, people have to probably drive considerable distances to get to their closest hospital. We can't afford to have any of them close. So
Right.
yeah, it's very concerning.
Well, and I think that's a really good point that I didn't even think of, actually, because I was thinking of places like Catholic Medical Center, which is in Manchester, and like the Elliott, and I'm pretty sure the last numbers I saw from each of those were like 600, roughly 600, 700 people were laid off from each of
Mhm.
those. But when we're talking about a state like New Hampshire, there are so many more, like, those are in the main populated areas of the state, right? But there are so many healthcare facilities that are in these much more rural locations that are actually much more critical. They usually don't have the staff, they usually don't have the resources or anything like that. And you bring up a great point that could be putting those systems in danger.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just I'm hoping that when we get back to normal, that we don't lose you know, our level of healthcare we have in the state. Yeah.
I hope so as well. All right, we did have a question from Cemetery of Choice in the chat, and I don't know if you'll be able to provide any insight on this. They ask, did your governor and cabinet know about this in January? Just like we've just found out the governor in Pennsylvania did. So this person is from Pennsylvania, wants to know how soon did the governor know about this, do you think?
I'm really not sure. I mean, I think my awareness of at the state government level was really kind of coming to a head like early March. We had some session days. We had a lot of bills, and I remember like March 11th and 12th, we had to get like over 200 bills, through the House before a critical deadline. But but and we went to 4 in the morning. Actually, we fudged the deadline a little bit. We the second day on the 12th, we went to 4 in the morning on the 13th to get those bills done. And it was partly because we knew that once we were done, we didn't know when we would be going back into session.
Mhm.
So, I mean, late February, early March, I think that's when it was, we were most conscious of it. When the governor exactly knew, I couldn't answer that question. I really don't know. I mean, I know President Trump, he did his travel ban in January from China, and then late January, he set up this, task force. So I don't know how plugged in the governor was with the president. We're talking about January, early February. I couldn't answer that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's go. Like, I'm actually curious to know what you think more broadly, even outside of the state of New Hampshire, because I think that My perspective on how President Trump has handled it is maybe like, a lot of people have said he was a little bit slow to act. I don't actually think he was, because he formed the coronavirus task force at the end of January
Mhm.
and banned travel from China at the same time.
Even
And
before that,
I
yeah.
feel like, yeah, and I mean, and this was all going on while the impeachment trial in the Senate was happening, which one could surmise that was a giant distraction that shouldn't have even
Mhm.
happened in the first place. How
Mhm.
do you think the president has handled this?
I think given the circumstances, he's done a great job. I mean, if you compare to like, and he's getting, some taking some flack from Nancy Pelosi and folks like that. But if you look at Nancy Pelosi's Twitter account during the same time, late January, February, as President Trump, there's absolutely no mention about coronavirus, none whatsoever. So it's pretty disingenuous for her to come in, late in the game here and take pot shots at the president for not, to saying that he didn't do enough, because it's obvious it wasn't on her radar screen. Well, even like the president at his State of the Union address, he addressed coronavirus the first Monday in February. He addressed it, and said what he's going to do. And then we see Nancy Pelosi tear up the speech.
Yeah.
So,
I actually know what the very first date was that she talked about coronavirus, because I did a little compare and contrast with her calendar of official statements. There's a video on this channel that lays this all out. February 24th was the first time that Nancy Pelosi issued any sort of public statement on coronavirus. And you know what she was doing when she issued it? She was walking around Chinatown in San Francisco, encouraging
right.
people to come out into the public.
You're right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, come to Chinatown, everybody. Yep. Yep,
Yep.
that's right. So there you go. It's like, so anything, you have something to say about the timeline, just sit down.
Yeah, really, really. Let's see. I was someone's telling me to update my thumbnail photo. No, Ken, you know what's funny about conservatives? But let me get your thoughts on this, because like this is a non-coronavirus question, but you're a conservative. Conservatives are obsessed with my haircut. Obsessed with my haircut. They're like so anxious for me to change my hair. I hear it literally dozens of times every single day. I'm not changing my hair, guys. What do you think?
I have no opinion on it one way or another. It's
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the same hairstyle for about 35 years, so I'm not one to offer commentary on hairstyle. I got my hair cut short when I went to the Air Force in 1987, and even though I got out of the Air Force in 07, I've kept the same basic Air Force hairstyle. So I'm the wrong person to ask.
Thank you for indulging me with that funny question. And like, your wife has probably taught you better than to criticize the hairstyles of women, I'm sure.
Yeah, any sort of questions about women's appearance, it's such a minefield for men. We know to try to not get anywhere near it.
Absolutely. So Bob, do you have anything else that you would like to add just about the situation in New Hampshire that you think we haven't covered yet?
Boy, we've covered quite a bit. I would just summarize by saying, I'm as impatient as anyone. I consider myself a constitutional conservative. Yeah, I can question, the constitutionality of a lot what's going on. And if I was governor, I might do things differently. But don't write off the governor. Don't decide just from this on this single issue. Don't become a single issue voter and say, I'm not going to support the governor in November. Because there's a lot bigger picture out there that has to be thought about. And I thought I laid that out pretty well. And I've been dealing with the bigger picture over the past 2 years with all the bills and all the craziness I've seen in Concord. That there's so much at stake that Ronald Reagan said, someone that agrees with me on 80% of the issues is my friend. And with the governor Sununu, I'm with him on like 90%. So that's how I would sum up.
Yeah. And I think that's a really key point to end on. Like, I think that Governor Sununu has done like a fairly good job. And I agree with you that I'm a little anxious and I would like things to be opening up faster, but he's the dude in the office making the decisions. We don't have access to all the information he has access to. There are a lot of different concerns taking place. And, I might not be completely thrilled with how it's being handled, but I'm even less thrilled with the prospect of having basically one party rule in New Hampshire and us
Right.
getting all sorts of additional taxes and all of
Exactly.
these things levied on us. That is far more concerning to me.
Exactly. I just thought like one other little anecdote, like, what I miss the most right now is Planet Fitness being closed because
Dude.
I'm a gym rat.
Oh,
And yeah, that
me
was a big
too.
blow to me. I mean, I whined the second Tuesday in March when they did away with Bagel Day. I look forward to Bagel Day because they get the second Tuesday every month. They have free bagels in the morning. And the guy goes, "Oh, we're not doing that because of coronavirus." I thought, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" Oh,
Mm.
that's so weak. And that was nothing because then a week or two later they closed entirely. But the governor gets a call from the CEO of Planet Fitness. The governor, so closing the gyms wasn't so much instigated from the governor. It was the CEO of the largest chain of fitness of the gyms in the country. They're based in New Hampshire, and he says to the governor, "Yeah, we got to close down. We got, or I mean, and they did it before the official shutdown. They took it upon themselves. I think I can't remember the CEO's name. It was Pratt, was his last name, but he took it upon himself even before the mandatory shutdown. He closed his gyms nationwide.
Good
So
for him.
a lot of what shut down was initiated by the business sector themselves. Don't forget that.
Yeah, I know the same thing with my gym. And I actually do have a Planet Fitness membership, but the thing I go to most often is Orange Theory in Bedford.
Mhm.
And they kind of did the same thing. Is they I don't think they shut down before the governor issued his order, but they were really starting to limit class attendance, and they were starting to move in that direction. I think they would have gone there anyway, but I totally agree with you. I cannot wait to get back to Orange Theory. Like the gym for me is like that's like my little family. I work out of my house.
Yeah,
That is where I socialize. That is where I see
right.
people. I miss them all so much.
Yeah.
But I might have to do double duty at the gym with the amount of weight that I'm gaining in
Oh
quarantine.
boy.
So I might be going to Planet Fitness as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like Sean Spice here, my favorite Twitter account, he had a great tweet a couple weeks ago. It was one of those 2,000, 3,000 response like tweets. He said, I've been maintaining my weight pretty well during the shutdown. Or even I've lost a few pounds. Whenever I hear the phrase "we're in this together," I throw up.
Oh, Sean
Yeah, yeah,
Spicer.
yeah.
Oh
He's
my goodness. Bob, if people want to follow you online, where can they find you?
Facebook.com/Bob Greene, the number 4NH. So that's my state rep page. And Bob Greene, the number 4NH. That's also my Twitter handle. And it's also where I have my Instagram account, which I don't do as much on Instagram. I need to do more, but I do a fair amount on Twitter, mostly active with my state rep page, Bob Greene, Facebook.com/Bob Greene, the number 4NH. And that's Greene with an E, just like the poster behind.
And you're also active in the Reopen New Hampshire group on Facebook, where we can get your updates about the percentage of deaths in New Hampshire from coronavirus pretty often.
Yeah, I haven't put up an update yet today, but I'll put one up. I'll get back on and try to do it daily. And I put it up there without really putting a value judgment on or anything. Just perspective. Okay, what do you like? I put it out there so people can think for themselves. What are your feelings on this?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's what people should be doing. They should be thinking for themselves. We are adults. We
Right.
should be able to, we shouldn't need people to hold our hands and tell us what to do and tell us to wear a mask or shame us into wearing a mask
Right.
or any of these things. We should be able to look at information and decide what is best for us and our health and our families and all those sorts of things. We don't need the government to do this for us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you got some people who think government is the solution. I think way too often government is the problem.
Yep.
That's my thought on it.
Well, thank you so much for joining me here today. Guys, thank you in the chat for joining. I know it's been a very active chat today, and I apologize for not keeping up with it. I will say, just as we kind of wrap things up, first, make sure to thank Bob. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up as a nice thank you to him for coming on and talking to us today. And if you all have not seen the video that I posted earlier today, kind of really calling out Sean Hannity for BS that he said about the Michigan protests the other day, please watch this video. Please share this video. I really wanted to get this video in front of him through somehow it going viral or whatever, because honestly, I am so angry at the way the protesters, especially especially in Michigan, have been portrayed. And a lot of the things that the media is saying is just not true. I talked to them yesterday. You can watch the full interview on this channel. You can watch the snippets that I called out, but please watch the video. Please share the video because this is a wrong that really should be righted. And those guys are deserving of an apology and our admiration and our thank you for them standing up and trying to do the right thing. So thank you all for coming out to join us. I'm going to end the stream for now, but I do these live streams intermittently whenever I have a very interesting guest that I want to talk to. So please keep in touch and follow me on social media and get an update about when we're going to do the next one. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.